We have a brand new report that links multiple Habs to trade talks for the first time this season, saying the Habs are openly and actively taking calls on them. We'll be diving into what this could mean for Montreal moving forward, plus a World Juniors update where multiple Habs prospects shine, like Filip Mesar, Owen Beck, and Lane Hutson, all dazzling in the showcase. So stick around for all that on this episode of Habs Digest. And we're just going to get straight into the video, Jesse. We're going to start with a little bit of a World Juniors update, and we got a few guys to get into. The first guy I want to talk about, the guy who was maybe most impressive today in their big win over the Czech Republic, or Czechia. I'm still not sure which one to say, but that's Filip Mesar. And in this win, 6-2, I believe, as this goes away, hopefully in a second, you'll see that Filip Mesar had 2 primary assists today. 2 primary assists on the team that scored 6 goals, and we're going to show you one. Take a look at this. Filip Mesar, whoopsie daisy down there, one-timer for the goal. I mean, just what a filthy dangle, Jesse. He was probably the Habs prospect that most impressed me today. His skating looks leaps and bounds over a lot of guys he was playing with, and he just looked to dominate the ice for Team Slovakia.
I think that his skating is a great place to start off. Like, he was flying around the ice today. Like, Filip Mesar can skate. Prior to that clip that we're showing, he has so much speed coming into the offensive zone, which really allows to leave the defender in the dust when he does put that dipsy doodle play into motion there. So what I really like on that play is we're seeing, first of all, like, the great speed, then the great hands in close on a defender, then an amazing pass, basically putting it on a plate, for his fellow countrymen there. So a couple good skills, like, all in combination there, because we already know that he can shoot. So the passing, the skating, the deking, it's like, that seems like a pretty good offensive toolkit from what we're seeing so far.
Yeah, and I just love getting to see Mesar play more and more than, he plays a ton in the OHL, but like, on this kind of world stage when you're playing for your country, sometimes these guys have that extra gear, and so far it certainly seems like Filip Mesar has that. Was it a perfect game? Well, no, not from any of these Habs prospects, quite honestly, but it was quite good from all of them. So shout out to Mesar. He was really, really phenomenal, but we'll jump on to the next player, and that's going to be Owen Beck, and as Marco D'Amico puts it, by far the most noticeable line for Canada, at least partway through the game, and I would say arguably for the whole game, was Canada's line with Owen Beck, Nate Danielson, and Owen Allard, and my goodness, they had a great play. I'm actually going to show you the play in this tweet really quick. Hopefully the video works. I've had some issues with this, but here it is. The beautiful pass from Beck over to Medichuk, and then over here. Danielson wasn't quite ready. He didn't pot that. I know it looks amazing, but that could have easily been a nice assist for Owen Beck that starts that whole play. And he was really good too, Jesse. Despite not putting up a point in Canada's win today, I thought Beck was very noticeable, and I thought he played a very solid brand of hockey. Of course, making some really, really good plays in the offensive zone, in the transition game especially. I was quite impressed with him, as I expected.
Definitely. And with the Canadian team, where they're not coming into this tournament being the favorites, even though they've won for the last 2 years, you really need players that contribute to winning hockey on your team if Canada is to get the gold in this tournament, right? So that's the thing about Beck, is like, you're not going to always see him on the score sheet, but when you're a solid 200-foot player, you're going to be affecting the game in so many different ways. And absolutely, his line was the most dominant, for this team. Danielson was, getting chances left, right, and center. So nice to see with Owen Beck wearing the A for Team Canada already, being a leader on the ice, just in terms of setting the example of how to play winning hockey.
Yep, and that's going to be the model for this Canadian team. Again, like, Team USA is probably the favorites, but we already saw Canada can hold their own against Team USA. It's going to be a very interesting tournament, but a nice start from the Canadian team. The final team we got to talk about is Team USA, and that's Lane Hutson, because he is probably the best Habs prospect in this tournament. And while he didn't do anything other than this power play assist, it's always really nice to see him get on the scoreboard in Team USA's big win over Team Norway. Norway really didn't generate a ton of chances this game, as Trey Augustine, not Jacob Fowler, was in net for Team USA. So we haven't seen Fowler yet. Hopefully we see him soon. But Hutson, again, doing Hutson things, playing well on the power play. I wouldn't say he stood out and was like super duper star taking over the game, but my goodness, like, whenever the puck's on his stick, magic's about to happen. And even with him maybe not scoring a goal or all this other kind of stuff, I still just felt that electricity surrounding Lane Hutson. And it's always a wonder to watch him work.
It's true, and he's got many an analyst already very excited. Craig Button already saying he's looking like the best defenseman in this tournament, just with his poise, his offensive abilities, everything else. And so nice to see him on the PP1 for Team USA. He wasn't there this time last year, but now another year older, further in his development, he's ready to take on that role. And what an amazing assist. Like, this is a player that really controls the play when he's on the ice. You see how much attention he was getting from the Norwegian defense, and rightfully so on the power play. As he's kind of shifting, he brings the whole defense along with him. So all he needs to do is just kind of pass the puck to the other side of the net and kind of leaving a wide open cage, set up a really nice goal for his team. So again, we're having our players, like our key players are having an effect right from the first game. And that's what we want to see, right? When it's there, when the pressure kind of matters, are they going to have an effect on the game? And I think we can solidly say for all of our prospects that were playing today that they did.
100%. They all showed up and they all played fantastic games. Super excited to see this tournament continue. And I'm especially excited to see Jacob Fowler, the final Habs prospect that hasn't hit the ice yet. It's going to be a fun time. But let's jump into the second topic and final topic of this video. And we got some trade updates. This is interesting. This is really, really interesting, as I'm going to show you something from the fourth period. Dave Pagnotta, a source we've used before. Pagnotta, a pretty tuned-in insider. And here we go. So, the Montreal Canadiens have 4 players on expiring contracts. Of course, we know about Monahan. We got Pearson, Stevens, Weidman. But then we also have guys that fourth period says some other guys who were signed beyond the season might be getting some interest. And those are Dvorak, Evans, Armia, and Savard, and Allen. And apparently, according to Dave Pagnotta, all but Evans are believed to be actively available, though even for Evans, the club would be willing to take on calls. I don't like that because I love Jake Evans, but this is kind of a new development. I mean, we figured Dvorak and Armia and Savard and Allen in trade talks. Evans, not so much, but to hear that they're actively engaged in the talks is very interesting in itself. And they also said Montreal's made it known that they're willing to take on a contract or two to help facilitate a trade if they are incentivized to do so, right? And they've also said that Monahan and his camp, they could have conversations about an extension into the new year. So there's a lot of moving parts here, Jesse, but let's just focus on the trade stuff. There's 5 guys there. We know Allen's probably the most likely to be traded. At this point, it seems like a certainty. Which of those other 4 guys do you think is maybe the most likely to move of the guys who are not expiring? Someone like, let me bring that back up. What is it? Savard, Armia, Evans, and Dvorak. For me, it's probably Savard, but you got to think teams are going to come knocking at least a few of those guys.
Absolutely. And you got to feel like Savard as well, just in terms of, other teams looking for a player like that, and then also us having so many defensemen as well. What a lot of kind of rumors around the league right now are kind of saying, depending on where we're at in the standings, that kind of depends moving, a player or not, whether we're kind of looking at either a Christian Dvorak or what have you. But I believe one position that isn't going to be affected in terms of trade is that for goalies, for Jake Allen. I believe that the Montreal Canadiens, that they've seen enough with Kaiden Primeau. They're ready right now to, even if it's not, they're not getting the world back in that trade. I feel like they want to do what's best for Cayden's development. Also, just really getting into a solid rhythm also for Samuel Montembeault for the rest of the season here. But it'll be interesting to see of where they're in the standings and how that kind of does affect some of their moves. Of course, Christian Dvorak playing a lot better is really good for his trade value, because you have to feel like Kent Hughes isn't going to sell low. He's going to wait till his value gets back up, and him playing well, the more he plays well, the higher the chances are that he goes by this trade deadline. Obviously, the same goes with Johan Armia as well, right? Is, him playing well, obviously his trade value wasn't through the roof to start the season as he was put on waivers, but him playing better, I wonder if he might be of interest. But in one way or another, whatever way we cut it, right, it's like we need to make space. It seems like that's more of a priority right now on the defensive side, although we don't want to be too quick and kind of doling out our veterans, at the same time. But it seems like we have a lot of guys kind of coming up, and that's why when you normally wouldn't see a guy's name like Evans, it's because we just have so many other guys coming up where it's not somebody we want to trade, but we'll listen to it just because we have that luxury of so many reinforcements in the pipelines right now.
And you got to think Evans is in demand, a guy who's quite solid on the faceoff dot and has been thrown out there in every defensive situation imaginable. And he still has a bit of offensive upside. So, he's quite good too. There's a lot of stuff going on here. For me, though, I got to think that Dvorak, Evans, and even Monahan, I think those guys are not at the bottom of likelihood to be traded, but at the bottom of timeline. And I'll explain why. I just think that right now, where is the center depth? If you move even one of those guys, right now you have Mitchell Stevens on the fourth line center, and then of course you have Dvorak, and then you have Suzuki on the first line, and then you're running Monahan with Evans. Sure, that can still be 5 centers, but then you trade, say, Monahan, or you trade Dvorak, then you break up this Evans and Monahan line that's been doing so well. I think they wait until Alex Newhook comes back, which is at this point in February. So he can take on some of that more center load unless they trade for another center. So in my mind, I feel like a Dvorak trade, unless they get some kind of crazy offer, that might come a bit later when you have new hook back. I mean, obviously you can just slide Evans back to center. It won't make a big difference, but I think you're bang on. I think defense is the biggest concern right now just because of how many guys are there. And I mean, David Savard is one of those guys that fits right in on any playoff team, right? I mean, just before we end the video, do you think there's any world where the Habs get like maybe even like a second or third round pick for David Savard? Maybe that's asking a bit much, but I feel like he's shown, especially since he's come back, the big positive impact he's had on this team and the style of hockey that a lot of teams really desire.
I really wouldn't rule it at all because he brings so much to this team, right? We see that not only is he really able there to kind of stand up for his fellow teammates, for his goaltender, but he's able to score some goals when he really needs to, right? He's been the catalyst for this team many times. If he continues playing well like that, you have to feel like when the time does come for him to go, that we are going to get a good return. I've really turned a corner on David Savard. You know, when he first came, I think that he's really done a lot to endear himself to fans with his hard play. And I think that that's going to be really valued by other teams looking to make the playoffs as well.
That's true. That's Mr. Goal Streak himself, David Savard. So we'll keep an eye on all of that. But yeah, some crazy trade updates, a ton of news there. And I hope you guys enjoyed all of that on this episode of Habs Digest. And if you did, leave a like, comment, subscribe. We're getting so close to 10,000 subs. So if you could be part of that first 10,000 to help us out, we'd really appreciate it. I'm Josh Gosse for my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.